Baseball here with another video today, and today we're going to be talking about grading every MLB team's offseason so far, so let's get right into it. The way this is going to work is we are going to go from AL East to NL West in that order. It should be pretty easy. I'm just going to give my opinion about what I think their grade would be if there was grading on it, and I want y'all to comment below to tell me, do you think I'm right, and tell me when you think I'm wrong. We are going to start with the New York Yankees. They re-signed Joely Rodriguez, who they acquired in the Joey Gallo trade, which I'm not really sure what I think about him. Chris Gittens was released. He filled in for Anthony Rizzo, and he really did not do very well. Clint Frazier has been released, and the Chicago Cubs signed him. Rougned Odor has been released. The Baltimore Orioles have signed him. Tyler Wade was traded to the Los Angeles Angels, and Corey Kluber has been signed as a free agent by the Tampa Bay Rays. For the New York Yankees is C+, because the only player they've really signed is Joely Rodriguez, who's really not had a good career so far. And they've released Corey Kluber, which is unfortunate for them because he's still pretty good, even though he's rather old. And Clint Frazier, honestly, they should have kept him. He is very underrated, and yeah, I think they should have kept him. Next up, we have the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox have had a very busy offseason. I'm not really sure what I think about it, though. They have signed Michael Wacha, Christian Stewart from the Tigers, Rob Refsnyder from the Twins, James Paxton from the Mariners, and they received Jackie Bradley Jr. in a trade with the Milwaukee Brewers, and Rich Hill from the New York Mets. Those are their signings, which I think are pretty good. And they have lost Eduardo Rodriguez in free agency to the Detroit Tigers, and they also have gotten rid of Hunter Renfroe in the trade to get JBJ back from the Brewers. My grade for them is B-. I think it could be better. They have signed a lot of names, but none of them are really big names so far, so I think that they could have done a little bit better. I think signing Rich Hill was a very good move for them, and they did lose a couple good players. Eduardo Rodriguez is a very underrated pitcher, and Hunter Renfroe, he's very, very underrated as well, and the Brewers better use him well. And next up, we have Tampa Bay Rays. I think the Rays have had a good offseason. They have signed Brooks Raley in free agency. He was an Astro last year and a very good lefty reliever for them. They've signed Corey Kluber, which is fantastic. He's a little older, and he's been called washed up a little bit lately, but I think he's still got a good year in him. And Wander Franco, the mega extension, 11 years and $180 million plus. It's not quite sure what the exact amount of money is, but it's a record for someone with under a year of service time. I think those are huge moves, and they have lost Michael Wacha to the Boston Red Sox, Jordan Luplow in a trade to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Michael Brosseau in a trade to the Milwaukee Brewers. I think they have had a fantastic offseason so far, and I grade them A-. The only thing that they could have done better, I think Jordan Luplow is kind of underrated, and they should have gotten a little bit more for him in the trade. They have the Toronto Blue Jays, and they let it off with a bang, signing Kevin Gausman from the San Francisco Giants in free agency. I think that is a huge move. They signed Yimi Garcia, bullpen arm from the Houston Astros, one of many that was a free agent, and Jose Barrios, a record extension, a very long extension for him, and I think they better use him well, but they probably will. They have lost Brett Cecil, who retired. Robbie Ray, who won 2021 Cy Young Award, he is now a Mariner, which I think is a very good move for them. And Marcus Semien to the Texas Rangers in a mega deal. Kirby Yates to the Atlanta Braves, and Steven Matz to the Cardinals. I think their grade is B-. It's a very good year for them so far, and I mean, it could have been a lot better keeping Ray and Semien, two of their best players, but who they've signed is filled a couple of the spots that they lost. And we have Baltimore Orioles, who I'm an Orioles fan, and I'm just going to tell you the truth. The Orioles need to do better. They're just not doing hardly anything. They signed Lucius Fox, a top prospect from the Kansas City Royals, and then the Washington Nationals claimed him, so we basically spent money on him and didn't do anything with him. The team let another team take him, which is unfortunate. We signed Cionel Perez from the Cincinnati Reds. He is a lefty reliever, but I'm not really sure. He's not had a good career, not as well as he would have hoped. And Rougned Odor from the New York Yankees. And just a couple hours ago, last night, I think, right before the CBA expired, Jordan Lyles is now an Oriole on a 1-year, $7 million deal, which I think is too much. His career ERA is like 5.15, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, he is just not worth $7 million, in my opinion. Both Rich Hill is earning less money than Jordan Lyles, and that should not be that way, in my opinion. So I grade the Orioles with a C. They should be doing better, honestly. On to the AL Central, and leading off with the Cleveland, they have only lost 2 players, and they haven't signed anyone. Typical Indians things going on there. They lost Harold Ramirez, their shortstop and outfielder, to the Chicago Cubs, and Roberto Perez to the Pittsburgh Pirates, who traded away Jacob Stallings, so they needed a catcher. And Roberto Perez is going to fill that spot, and I think he's going to do a good job. So I gave the Indians a B. They didn't really lose that much so far. They haven't done anything, so B is just basically what you're going to get from me if you haven't done anything great or bad. Then you have Chicago White Sox. They have only done things with 3 players as well. They have re-signed Leury Garcia. They have signed Kendall Graveman, a reliever from the Houston Astros, as a free agent, and they have lost Cesar Hernandez to the Washington Nationals. I think he's a little washed up, in my opinion, and I don't think it's really a problem for them to lose him. So I give them a B. They haven't signed any big names like I kind of thought, and I hope they re-sign Carlos Rodon because he is very underrated, but I give the White Sox a B grade. Next up, Kansas City Royals. They have only done things with 3 players. The AL Central is kind of boring so far until you get to the Detroit Tigers, of course. And the Royals released Kyle Zimmer, and Wade Davis retired, and Jacob Junis has also been released. Neither one of Junis or Zimmer has signed anywhere. I hope that's an Orioles pickup because they're actually okay, which is better than a lot of Orioles pitchers, unfortunately. And I give them a B because, yet again, they haven't done anything bad or anything good yet. And then we're on to the Detroit Tigers. And with the Tigers, they have done a lot. They have signed Javier Baez, which is, of course, the number one thing. 6-year, $140 million contract, which I think he's worth every bit of that. His offense is kind of slacking, but his defense is probably worth all of that. Eduardo Rodriguez from the Boston Red Sox. Tucker Barnhart has been signed on an extension. I think those are 2 pretty nice moves as well. Then you have Nico Goodrum being released, unfortunately, and also Grayson Grinder. Neither one of them have gone anywhere yet. And then Kristen Stewart went to the Boston Red Sox. I give them an A because they haven't really lost anyone, and they've gained Baez and Eduardo Rodriguez. And I think that it just shows that they actually want to compete again, and it's good when Detroit is a good baseball team. And Minnesota Twins, they've had a pretty nice year so far. They've gotten reliever Trevor McGill from the Chicago Cubs. He's had a pretty good career so far. Byron Buxton to a extension. I think that is a very good move by them. And they also signed Dylan Bundy, a free agent who recently played for the LA Angels. I think that all those are pretty big and good moves. McGill was very underrated, but he's a really, really nice reliever. And they've released John Gant, who has not signed anywhere yet, Rob Refsnyder, who signed with the Red Sox, and Willians Astudillo, which I am a big Astudillo fan. Not because of his stats, he is just a clown, and I love watching him. But, yeah, unfortunately, they haven't really lost anyone, and, yeah, they've gained a lot of good players, so I think he is I hope Astudillo goes to the Orioles because I'm an Orioles fan, but I give Minnesota Twins an A-. On to the AL West, we have the Houston Astros. They have signed Hector Neris from Philadelphia and supposedly re-signed Justin Verlander. There's been some rumors that it's not official yet, but we're just going to say Justin Verlander is an Astro. I think those are two pretty nice moves, but they have also lost a lot of their bullpen in Brooks Raley, Yimi Garcia, and Kendall Graveman. And they also lost their backup catcher, Garrett Stubbs, so that's why they got Hector Neris. They needed someone to fill in for the rest of their bullpen being gone, so I gave them a B+. They've lost a lot of good arms, but they got Hector Neris and Justin Verlander, who may be in the pen or a starter, so I think overall, they did good. The LA Angels, I think the Angels are a very risky team, and I think it's going to pay off for them because so far they've signed Michael Lorenzen from the Cincinnati Reds, Noah Syndergaard coming off of rehab for over 2 years from the New York Mets in free agency. Raisel Iglesias, they just re-signed him for a 4-year, $58 million contract. Those are some pretty nice moves. I really hope that they make Michael Lorenzen a two-way player. He wants to be one, and LA Angels, they are kind of the team for that right now with Shohei Ohtani, so I really hope they do that. And plus, that saves 2 roster spots on the 25 or 26-man roster, depending on what time of the year it is. So I think if he goes two-way, that will actually help the team out because they'll get 1 extra player. And then they have lost Alex Cobb to the Giants and Dylan Bundy to the Twins. Both of them about league average pitchers. Nice pitchers to have on a team, but it's not devastating losses for the Angels, so I gave the Angels an A-, one of the best grades I've given out so far today. And the best grade I will give out today for any team is coming up next with the Texas Rangers. If you're wondering why, you must not be in the baseball world, because the Texas Rangers have signed Corey Seager to a 10-year, $325 million mega contract. It's a lot of money on the line. And 10 more years of his career, he's probably going to be a Ranger the most of his career, which I think is going to be very interesting to see. So they got him out of free agency from LA. And Cole Calhoun also coming over from the Arizona Diamondbacks. John Gray from the Colorado Rockies. And Billy McKinney and Zach Rex from the Dodgers. So they raked the NL West out of a lot of their really good players. And they also got Marcus Semien to a 5-year deal. I mean, this is crazy. They have done so many huge deals. Marcus Semien, John Gray, Corey Seager, the top 3. Man, the Texas Rangers really want to be a good team, and it looks like they are going to be a good team. And who have they lost? Jordan Lyles, career ERA 5.15. They're not going to miss him. A+ to the Texas Rangers. Man, what an off season it's been for the Rangers so far. Next up, Seattle Mariners. Robbie Ray, Cy Young Award winner. I'm not really sure what I think about this, but he has been given a 5-year, $115 million contract. I'm not saying he's not worth it. I mean, he just won the Cy Young Award, but it's hard for me to tell if he's really going to keep being good like he was last year because, well, he's only really had 1 good year in his career. He had been really bad up until then, so I think that's a good move. And Adam Frazier from the San Diego Padres, this trade, I think this is going to benefit both teams because the Padres really weren't playing him, and Adam Frazier is now going to get a lot of playing time with the Seattle Mariners, so that's pretty good for them. The Mariners have lost James Paxton to Boston, and Yusei Kikuchi and Kyle Seager are free agents. They haven't re-signed or signed with anyone, so not really sure if they're going to miss out on those players. So yeah, that's how it is for the Mariners. I give them an A-, a pretty good offseason so far if you ask me. And next up we have Oakland Athletics. Chad Pinder and Tony Kemp have re-signed, both avoiding arbitration with their deals. So, not huge players, not big names, but I think those are some key guys in just holding the team together. They're big team leaders, and they have lost a lot of players to the Mets. They've lost Starling Marte and Mark Canha to the Mets, and Yan Gomes to the Chicago Cubs. those are some pretty key players on their team that are gone now. So I gave them a C plus. But, the Oakland Athletics, they're kind of unloading their team and going into the official bad team stage of unloading their players and starting from scratch. So that is the Oakland Athletics. We have the Atlanta Braves. They have really just signed a couple small players to keep on their team and a couple small players new to the team. They have re-signed Orlando Arcia and Guillermo Heredia. If you probably don't know those names, but I do because I live in Alabama and the Braves are the thing down here. I'm not a Braves fan, but I watch the Braves a lot, so those are two familiar names down here. Kirby Yates from the Blue Jays coming to the Braves to booster that bullpen, and Manny Pineapple coming from the Brewers. I think they haven't really done much, but they haven't lost much. The only person they've lost is Johan Camargo. They're not going to miss him. He hasn't really done that much for them. Used to be a pinch hitter extraordinaire, and now he's not even good pinch hitting. So I give them a B. They've kept the team together. They are keeping the base of the team together, and that's what they need to do. I really hope they re-sign Freddie Freeman to keep that team together. And next up, we have the New York Mets. This is a very fun team coming in 2021. Max Scherzer re-signing. Man, 3 years, $130 million, 43 and a third AAV is the highest of all time. The highest before was 36, and now it's 43 and a third. Max Scherzer, highest average annual value contract ever. Starling Marte and Mark Canha coming from the Oakland Athletics. Those guys are really going to be helpful for them. Eduardo Escobar coming from the Brewers. I think he is going to be a pretty good third baseman. He already has been so far in his career, so I hope he continues to do good. They have lost Javi Baez, but, you have to lose a good bit to get all those players. Javi Baez is now a Tiger. Noah Syndergaard going to the Angels. Marcus Stroman going to the Cubs. A pretty nice deal for the Cubs. And Rich Hill is now a Red Sox. So they lost a good bit of players, but they got a good bit of players back. So I'm going to give them an A. Only reason it's not an A+ is because they lost Baez, Syndergaard, Stroman, and Hill, all really good players. Next up, we have Washington Nationals. They haven't really done that much so far this year. They have gotten Lucius Fox from the Orioles, who got them from the Royals like a day before he went to the Nationals. But he's a top prospect. He's okay. Andrew Stevenson and Alcides Escobar re-signed, and Cesar Hernandez coming over from the Chicago White Sox back to the NL East, which he originally started his career with, the Phillies. So I think they haven't really done that much. I'm going to give them a B. Nothing good, nothing bad yet again. So I think it's been an okay offseason for them. And next up, Miami Marlins. This is a very under-the-radar team. I think they might end up having a winning record next year because they're making small moves that are, I think, eventually going to pay off big time. Jacob Stallings, a trade with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's now a Marlin. Avisail Garcia from the Brewers. He's now a Marlin. I think that's a big move there. Sandy Alcantara re-signing with the Marlins. And Joey Wendell, a trade with the Tampa Bay Rays. He is an all-star this year for the first time. I think he showed this year what he can do if he gets some playing time, and he probably will get some playing time with Miami, so I hope he continues to do good with the Marlins. I give them an A-. If you get above A, you've had a really good offseason. So that's my grade for them. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Phillies. They haven't done that much. They signed backup catcher for the Astros, Garrett Stubbs, and backup pinch hitter for the Braves, Johan Camargo, and Corey Knebel, a reliever from the LA Dodgers. So not much for them there. And they lost Hector Neris, which I think is a pretty big name to lose. Even though he was the face of their awful bullpen, he's still a pretty nice bullpen arm. And they lose him, so I give them a B-. It could have been a lot better. They haven't signed any big names, and they lost a pretty big name. Even after having a pretty close, they were close to making the playoffs, which, yeah, I think they should have tried a lot harder. So far, it's not over yet. We're only halfway through off season, but still, I think the Phillies should have done a lot better. And on to the NL Central, I am going to start with the Chicago Cubs. I think the Cubs have had a pretty decent offseason. No one's really thought about the Cubs being good again, but they signed Clint Frazier from the Yankees, Yan Gomes from the Athletics, and Harold Ramirez from the Guardians, and Marcus Stroman from the Mets. None of them huge names. Stroman's probably the biggest name, but I think those moves are all going to pay off, and they're all going to be everyday steady players, putting up pretty nice numbers for them. So I hope all those players turn out well. And Trevor McGill is on to the Minnesota Twins, so I gave them a B+. I thought about A-, but they haven't really signed that many big names. I was surprised that they got Stroman because there was some big name teams going after him, but they did get Marcus Stroman. So I expect them to be a little bit better in 2022 because of those 4 players. Next up, Pittsburgh Pirates. Pirates have made a lot of moves with not a lot of good players. Kevin Newman's re-signed, Roberto Perez from the Guardians, Jared Eichhoff from the Phillies, Ben Gamel re-signing, Jose Quintana signing from the Giants, Yoshi Tsutsugo all re-signing. Tsutsugo, I think, is probably the best player that they re-signed, but nothing really big happened for them. And the players they released, not really big names either. Chad Kuhl, Cody Ponce, Jacob Stallings in the trade with the Miami Marlins, and Phillip Evans has been released. I hope Phillip Evans gets re-signed because he's been decent last year, but I just give the Pirates a B because they haven't done bad, they haven't done good either. So they probably traded away probably their best player in Jacob Stallings. So I think it's about an average offseason for them so far. So I give them a B. Next up, got St. Louis Cardinals. They have done a massive amount of big things, and that is signed Steven Matz to a 4-year, $44 million deal. I'm going to give them a B because one player, unless it's like Carlos Correa, I'm not going to give you a huge grades. And Steven Matz, he's an underrated pitcher, but I think he got about what he's worth, 11 AAV this year. So I give the St. Louis Cardinals a B. Next up, Milwaukee Brewers. They haven't done too much this year, but they've signed some okay names. Brett Sullivan, okay pitcher, a left-hander. Pedro Severino, as an Orioles fan, I'm really mad that we didn't re-sign him because he's actually pretty good. I think he'll blossom in Milwaukee with the Brewers. And then they get Hunter Renfroe in a trade with the Red Sox that happened yesterday right before the deadline. It was really surprising. I thought that was a pretty good trade for both teams, honestly. Both players pretty even. And then Manny Pineapple going to the Braves, Eduardo Escobar going to the New York Mets, and they lose Jackie Bradley Jr. back to the Red Sox where he started his career off. So I'm gonna say it's a B. It could be a B+. I think Severino is honestly a pretty nice deal for them. 1 year, $1.9 million. I think he's worth $3 million if the Orioles re-sign him, because he's actually really underrated. And look at his stats; they could be better, but they could be a lot worse. So he's an above average league catcher. Next up, you have Cincinnati Reds. They have signed nobody big names, no major league contracts signed from free agents this year so far, which is very interesting. And Cionel Perez going to Baltimore, and Michael Lorenzen going to Los Angeles with the Angels. I give him a B-. I think Michael Lorenzen is actually a very underrated player, and I think he'll blossom in LA. So B-. They could have done a lot better. We're on to the NL West to end this video off. And the Los Angeles Dodgers going first. They just re-signed Chris Taylor yesterday, which I think is a pretty nice move. He's a little old. He's like 29, so about league average age, and he just put up a pretty nice year and a huge postseason for the Dodgers. So I think that was a pretty good move to re-sign him. There was a lot of rumors he was going to the Mariners or the Rangers, and I think it's a good move. And then getting Daniel Hudson from the Padres, I think, is a pretty awesome move. Fun fact, he's my best friend's cousin. I think he's a very underrated reliever. So I think he's going to have a pretty good year in LA. Second time in his career he's played for them. Back in 2018, he played for the Dodgers. But we're not really talking about who they signed. We're talking about who they lost. They lost Corey Seager, Billy McKinney, Zach Rex, Max Scherzer, McKinney, and Rex. Pretty nice. pretty nice prospects, and Max Scherzer and Corey Seager, huge names going goodbye for the Dodgers. And Corey Knebel, a pretty old reliever, but he's still okay. So I think he's worth the signing from the Phillies, and I think the Dodgers are going to miss him eventually. And on to San Diego with the Padres. They have not signed any major league contracts of notable players. And then Adam Frazier going to the Mariners. That may sound bad because of the year he had last year with making the NL All-Star team, but it's really not that bad because they weren't really playing him. Their infield is so stacked, it doesn't really have the room for him, so I think he'll get a lot more playing time in Seattle. And then Mark Melancon, this surprised me yesterday, a couple hours before the deadline. Mark Melancon went to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I was amazed that this happened because the Diamondbacks, they're really not a big name team, but they got Mark Melancon. I think the Padres, B-, two pretty good players that they lost. I think Frazier is good for them. I hope that the prospects they get turn out to be a good trade for them. But Mark Melancon, they should have gone out and re-signed him. Next up, we have the San Francisco Giants. I think the Giants have done okay. They added Alex Wood and Alex Cobb, two pretty good players, pretty good pitchers, but they did lose Kevin Gausman to the Toronto Blue Jays. I think it's pretty good. I think Wood and Cobb, a combined total of 4 years and $45 million. That's a pretty good average, league average pitchers getting league average deals. I think that's going to turn out to be worth it eventually for the Giants, and I give them a B+. Next up, Colorado with the Rockies. They lose Jon Gray to the Rangers. Jon Gray is actually putting up good numbers in Colorado, which is extremely impressive for a pitcher. And they re-signed Elias Diaz to a 3-year, $14.5 million contract. I'm really not sure. He hasn't proved to me if he's worth that much money. I think that might end up being a little waste of money on him. They need to go out and sign a big name. They are supposedly in the mix for Chris Bryant. I just don't see that happening. Bryant wants to be on a championship team, so Colorado probably not going to be a good option for him. And last but not least, to end the video, you have the Arizona Diamondbacks. They got Jordan Luplow in a trade to the Rays. They got Luplow from the Rays. Mark Melancon from the Padres in free agency, and Cole Calhoun went to Texas. I think those are pretty nice deals, all of them. Melancon, 2-year, $14 million. I think he's worth more than that. I think they got a steal of a deal. And Luplow, I think he's going to hit for power with the Diamondbacks if he gets full time. So I think that's good for him. And Cole Calhoun, I'm not really sure. I think it's not great that they lost him, but it's not going to hurt them too bad that they lost him. Guys, thanks for watching. If you are still watching, comment below what you think about my grades for each team and if you think they're pretty good. And just comment whatever you really think about the Seager deals, just all of the Rangers and Mets deals have been pretty big names. So comment below what you think, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So thanks.